I was born right in Berkeley and grew up in Oakland. I was very active at San Francisco State, student activist, and from San Francisco State joined the Black Panther Party. So that was a very active, about a 3 to 4 year period from the time I was 20 to about 24. And around that time, by then I had become married and I had a child. And I slowed down a bit, and I was able to understand that I had in fact been through something extremely unusual and historic. I began keeping a journal, writing down. I was intending to write a novel from the beginning, and I began writing down all of these names, sayings. People used to greet each other like this: what it is, what it ain't, what it ought to be. And then they would go off into spasms, what it is, what it ain't, what it ought to be, what should be, it would just be crazy. So I would just write everything down, nicknames that people had, all kinds of things. I didn't really have the chops to write a novel at that point, but I always kept those notebooks. I kept trying to write it. I wrote probably 70 or 80 pages of, quote, quote, a novel. I never threw it away. So about every 10 years, I would come back to that desire. But of course, there were many, many life changes, and I went through that. And finally, at around 34 in 1980, I began getting involved in poetry workshops, and then I went to drama workshops, and then to fiction workshops. So from 80 to 2010, I pretty much was in writing workshops continuously for 30 years. Love them, made so much progress through them, really learned the craft of creative writing through them. And during that time, I also got an MFA here at San Francisco State. All the time, even when I was learning poetry, when I was learning and writing a total basically of about 25 plays, I never forgot about this novel. And so I returned to it and made a strict determination to get it done. And that's how it came about.
Thank you
so much. It was a very involved process. I graduated from high school at 16, from Castlemont High School in East Oakland on a Friday, and went down and enrolled at Oakland City College on a Monday. So I basically started Oakland City College at age 16, okay? And we didn't call it Oakland City College. We called it City,
okay.
And it was very derogatory, okay? Yes, at that time, in the Black community, there's lots of distinctions, and so at that time it was, where are you going to college? And if you had your druthers, you'd say, oh, I'm going to Clark or Spelman, or Howard, or someplace, even City College of San Francisco. But then if you said, I'm going to enroll at City, then people would say, City, like, you're busted. That's all you can do is go to Oakland City College, So it was déclassé, okay? It was where the regular people went. And I was happy to go there, and enrolled right in, was thrilled. No matter what distinctions I heard, I knew it was a happening place. And there was a brother there who became active in the Black Panther Party and worked on Ron Dellum's staff, and his name is Virtual Morrell. And he was like the greeting committee, and he sat there on the steps at Oakland City College, where Children's Hospital Research Center is now on Martin Luther King. It used to be Grove Street. And I mean, he was like a guard, and you had to pass by him. He was a ticket toll taker, you know, you had to pass by him. So it was a very stringent social scene. I wasn't in any way at the bottom, even at the middle of it. I was a nobody, and very, very happy to be a nobody there. I've always actually been happy to be a nobody, because then I can observe, and I love to do that, you know. So, but that's where I met Huey and Bobby. I just happened to have a locker next door to Huey's girlfriend at the time, and I put that in the first 2 pages of Virgin Soul. And he'd always come by the locker, "Where's Margaret? Where's Margaret?" And that's how I got to know Huey. Outside of Oakland City College, all along Grove Street, again, which is now Martin Luther King, there were tables set up by student radicals and young radicals, from the W.E.B. Du Bois Club to the Young Socialist Alliance, all kinds of radical student organizations. Can't remember all of them, SDS, all their anti-Vietnam protesters. And so they would all be on their soapboxes telling you this, telling you that, telling you this, telling you that. And my friends and I were, we were young, and we weren't political. We just liked to go out there in the middle of the afternoon and see if any of them had fainted, because it would be so hot. And we'd think, you know, are they going to faint? They've been talking for 3 hours. Can you believe it? You know, so I didn't know it, but I was absorbing this radical information by osmosis. But I was very determined to get out of Oakland City College, and to get out as fast as I could, and to transfer. That was the parental training, get your education, and so forth. So I didn't pay attention in terms of getting involved in the movement activities, but I still went to everything, listened, and I was a reporter. Even then, I had always been a journalist up to that point, and so I reported on them, and I reported on the young black radicals. I convinced my editor, Jack Page, wonderful man. I convinced him. He was the school, wasn't the editor. He was the advisor for the school paper. I convinced him that these young black radicals outside of the school were new. They weren't like, the civil rights leaders who had come before them. And took some convincing, but he let me run a series on them. Mm-hmm. So that began my association with many of them. So that when I did become involved in the Black Panthers, then the leadership of the Black Panthers was decimated or put in jail at the time of the Martin Luther King assassination and Little Bobby's assassination. Then Huey Newton, speaking in a recording that he sent out through Bobby, and we were all at Mosswood Park in Oakland, he reorganized the structure of the party because the leadership was all in jail or in exile. He rearranged it, and he said, and so I want to appoint Judy Hart, editor-in-chief of the paper. I had been working with Eldridge and Kathleen anyway. I want to appoint Judy Hart, editor of the paper, because she's a Together sister from Oakland, and I know her from Oakland City College. So I was sitting there with my boyfriend at the time, who became Clarence Thomas, one of the leaders of the strike, and who became my husband. And basically our eyes just kind of popped out of our head, what? But boom, everything changed in my life.
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit about the demographics of the people who were participating and like the age range?
So first of all, let's look at the Bay Area. The Bay Area had been then and remained for a long time a very radical place. Okay, so we know that the Natchez society, first actually was here, SYN, my cousin was a co-founder of it. Anyway, in Monterey, just many radical movements started here. So as teenagers, for entertainment in the 60s, we'd catch the bus up to UC Berkeley and watch the protesters. Okay? You get your pizza, you watch the protesters. That was big fun. Watch the police coming, marching down the street threateningly. As teenagers, we'd catch the bus and then the streetcar, the bus to San Francisco, the Trans-Bay bus from Oakland to San Francisco, get off at the terminal, get the streetcar up to the Sheraton and watch the pickets there. And of course, we'd sit in the Sheraton and be looking at the glamorous and the wealthy surroundings and the wealthy people going in one entrance and then the demonstrators over there. It was fun. That's what we did for fun. In addition to going to the beach, dropping a quarter in a dime in the AC Transit, going to the beach. So we were already in that incubator. Okay? We're already in that incubator. Being in the movement, in this radical petri dish, what do you call it, in the Bay Area, everyone was a part of it. Everyone was a part of it. For the big rallies that the Panthers had, that you went at DeFermery Park in Oakland, because that was the place where you'd see people you hadn't seen since high school. Okay? It was the happening scene. So I look at young people now with the rap. Everybody's not into the rap and the thug rap and the struggle rap and all that kind of stuff, but they all play it. I listen to it, I hear it, on their cars, It doesn't mean they're all there. They're fellow travelers. They're fellow travelers. So it was that kind of scene then. There were all kinds of people around, and they were all different ages. And one thing I'd like to say about both what happened at San Francisco State once we broke down the barriers and got open enrollment going, and with the Black Panther Party, is that we always pulled in our brothers, our sisters, our cousins, our relatives, our third cousins, our second cousins, So it was always your family, so that the family was always involved. And the FBI knew that. Because in the green books, anybody here know what the green books were?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Our families, addresses, names, they're all there because they were contributing cars, books, money, food, clothing, and their presence even though they didn't want us to do it. They wanted us to just get your education and join the middle class and become a teacher. That was the plan at that point. That's why they left the South, because it was segregated. But they knew also, too, that there was racism. And I'd like to say, I didn't remember hearing the word racism a lot, but I heard segregation, and I knew about the difference between, I knew about white skin privilege. It wasn't called that then. But our parents knew about that. You have to be twice as good to be equal, meaning get in there and do what you're supposed to do, get some good grades out of that, and graduate, and don't let anything stop you. So our parents didn't want us to become hurt or they, like in the book, one of her uncle says, I don't want you coming home in a pine box. They didn't want that, but at the same time, they knew the system was set up, rigged against black people, one, and two, that the police were dirty. They knew that. The police were dirty. So we had their approval. So that makes a big difference when your parents know that you're really on the right side, even if it looks kind of wild and out there. My parents met at Langston University in Langston, Oklahoma. Dad was from Beggs, Mom was from Muskogee. So they moved out here. They were Okies. My father's father was one of Oklahoma's first black oil millionaires. Got it, lost it, But Albert Haywood Hart, the first, and my dad was Albert Haywood Hart Jr., and my brother, who actually became a member of and a head of the Black Student Union at Laney College, was Albert Haywood Hart III. So this is what happened. These black pioneers came in the 30s and the 40s, okay? And they came for tremendous opportunities that weren't here. Probably, you said you're from LA. I don't know, maybe your people came, at some point. The people in Texas, Oklahoma migrated west, and the certain ones, Arkansas, a certain group migrated north to Chicago, or Illinois, or, Michigan, okay? And then those in the Cadillackies, North Cadillackie, South Cadillackie, so forth, they migrated up to New York, okay? So when my parents came here, like all the others, they retained their affiliations. They became members, founding members, and stayed members until their deaths of the Langston Club. Okay? So there was the Langston Club, the Guthrie Club. So you either joined and had these clubs according to your cities or towns where you grew up, or your colleges. And that was all over Los Angeles and the Bay Area, Oakland and San Francisco. So they retained those affiliations. So I remember going on picnics, different Christmas parties, birthday parties with the parents and the children of the parents. Okay, so we all knew each other. Okay, that's going on. Then there's the parallel thing of integration, because here we are in California, and we're no longer restricted like our parents were in Oklahoma. Incidentally, when they moved from Oklahoma, one of the stories my mother told me over and over again was about Ada Louise Cipruel, and she was the woman who the plaintiff who argued to get into the University of Oklahoma's law school. And they finally went all the way up to whatever Supreme Court, and they let her in, but she had to sit in an iron cage in the middle of the classroom. My mom told me that story over and over again. Yeah. When I was a kid, I just thought my mom was telling me all these stories, because she would tell me fantastic stories too, fantasy, But then when I grew up, and then I researched, then I found she was telling me the truth in many instances. So they came here. So going to get our education in schools here, what are now called PWIs, predominantly white institutions, but we didn't call them that. Then, it was just, you're going to get into San Francisco State or UC Berkeley, That was an objective, okay? My next door neighbor, when I was growing up in East Oakland, she had another kind of a bourgeois objective, and she became a black skier. She's really one of the few, to do that. So you have this where we knew each other here, but then we had all these opportunities open to us over here. Okay, so there was a lot of cross play and interaction, but that's part of what people decry as one of the tragedies of integration, is that we lost that bondedness, but yeah, it happened, but we still knew each other a great deal. And I think that the the movement really brought people together tremendously. in a way that they hadn't been together then. And unfortunately, I maintain and write about it a lot, that the assassination of Martin Luther King and Little Bobby Hutton, the assassinations of the two of them in a 3-day period in April '68, was what bound people together, because all of a sudden that long black line, as I call it, with whites on it too, of the NAACP, CORE, Urban League, Nation of Islam, Black Panther Party. You see how I'm putting them at different ends of the spectrum, but they're still all together fighting for rights. But the death, the slaying of Martin Luther King and Little Bobby put everyone on notice. Oh, this system is not good. This system is bad. This system is treacherous. It's deadly. Okay, everyone. And throw in there then all the white groups who understood it too, with Kent State University, SDS, and so forth. So a lot of times students are asking, they were asking before George Floyd, what, when are people going to be like that again, and so forth. Well, we see. Now people understand. It's totally out in the open, This police power is treacherous, It's treacherous. It doesn't, as we've just seen with
Tyree Nichols.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whose skin, all skin folk are not kinfolk. It doesn't matter whose skin. If you have that power and you don't understand that it's a treacherous power, and that it shouldn't be that. The police should not be an occupying force within the black or the brown communities. They should be there to, chase some cats up a tree. Shit. Pardon my French.
So
I mean, we live in a world where in other countries the police don't have this function. They're not armed.
Right.
They don't have this function to go out and kill people. I'm not saying I'm against law and order, but this law and order we have is not law and order. And even so esteemed a filmmaker as the one who made Gangs of New York.
Martin Scorsese.
Martin Scorsese understands that, come on, it was a gang. It was a gang, come on. Let's get real with this. Which I think people are finally. We had another martyr. We've had tremendous numbers of martyrs, but George Floyd, this lynching for 9 minutes, that did it. I maintain that because of that movement that we had in the 60s, we saved democracy. We saved it. Black people pushing for their civil rights, then it expanding into Black power, and Huey and Bobby and Eldridge calling for UN plebiscites. This saved American democracy for 50 years. Now, it's up for grabs again. We'll see.
Right. Absolutely.
Because as the American Civil Liberties wrote, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Gotta fight for this. I noticed this phenomenon when I taught at Laney for so long. I noticed that among the Latinx women, that in their culture, the one that I had contact with in the barrio, coming from, the Fruitvale area, primarily, it was a given that the young women would stay home and would have babies. And I noticed that the ones who were in my classes really had to fight very hard, to get their education. Okay? That's very different for Black women. Okay? Black women, regardless of what Kevin Samuels, the late great Kevin Samuels, has said, Black women were encouraged for a few generations, get your education, do for self. This has been going on for hundreds of years. And even I call it the Black woman's mantra or national anthem. You can do bad by yourself. So we were present. We were present during the 60s. We were there. No one could deny us. We were there in equal and maybe even greater numbers than the men. So we took leading roles wherever we were. Even here at San Francisco State, I know that the history is kind of muddled, but I was here that first semester that it changed from the Negro Students Association to the Black Student Union.
Oh, you were here?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Again, I was a nobody. Okay, which is wonderful. It's a wonderful position, But I saw Mary Anna Wadi, who was Mariam Wadi, yeah, and Patricia Rivera, Trish. They were instrumental in renaming it and at the meetings for it. They were Mariana, as you know, if you've interviewed her, she's now about to be 91, 92. Very headstrong, very much in charge. We were there, we were present, we were vocal, and because we were vocal and we didn't play the okie doke, as we called it, we got called difficult. Okay? Now I believe the word is bitch. Okay? But we got called difficult. Okay? She's a difficult one. She's mouthy. Okay? So, difficult and mouthy, and she's got a mouth on her, In my family, I'm just Scotty Hart's daughter. My father was a race man, what they used to call down south, a person who protested. And usually that kind of person had to leave the South, or else something bad was gonna happen to them. But I'm Scotty Hart's daughter, so this mouth is gonna be there. And thank goodness it saved me and saved others.
So what years were you at San Francisco State?
I came here in spring semester 66.
Okay.
And I graduated in August 69 and had my baby. I graduated August 69 and had my baby August 8th, 69. Wow. So it was all within a 5-day period. As I was coming to this interview, I was remembering always walking from the parking lot up that long hill here during the pregnancy. And I'm sure it was because of that, and because I used to always be a walker, that up until all these replacements, But I had 3 hours of labor and 10 minutes of delivery. So yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about your particular roles in leadership within these particular Black organizations?
Yes. It started for me with being a tutor. So when I came here the spring semester of 66, yes. During that summer, a whole contingent of San Francisco students, including Roger Alvarado, I believe, went down south and participated in the Freedom Rides.
Can you say what year that was?
I believe it was 66.
Okay, 66.
Okay? They participated in it. They came back and they radicalized the entire campus. The entire campus. So here's spring 66. Here's the change in the Black Student Union. It becomes the Black Student Union. Then there's the summer of 66. Once again, a summer where there are urban conflagrations called riots. Okay? Then they come back, and they come back with this each one teach one. And so through the funding of San Francisco State, I believe Summerskill was the president then. Then they funded these centers throughout the urban parts of the city, the funky parts of the city. So I went and I was the tutor and then really just the head of the center at Potrero Hill, which I go into detail in the book, in Virgin Soul, using, my experiences there. Okay, so that was our first, that was my first radicalization. Openly radical, because we had to advocate for funds, and then I would just be going to meetings all over the city and at Roger Alvarado's flat, and so that was the first thing, okay? And then I like to say that Huey and Bobby came to San Francisco State, just like IBM and Clorox came, and they set up, in a room.
You're on campus.
Yeah, with the flyers in the back, and they're speaking in the front, and they recruited. And my roommates and I just got all decked out the way we did then, with our naturals flowing and our ponchos and our boots. We were just going to be hip, and we went there. And my roommates decided to join. And I said, I know these guys from City College. They're not playing hopscotch. Come on. But I went, and we were kind of known informally by a couple of other brothers as the Sisters with Skills. So Janice became Bobby Seale's scheduler and secretary. Joanne, who is a tough chick, a tough broad, became officer of the day frequently. She could kick anybody's ass, man or woman. And Betty became the office manager, and Evelyn had a particular handle on finances, and Evelyn became the treasurer of the party. And then I worked with Eldridge and Kathleen on the paper. So within weeks, I of course signed the paper and joined. My mother was bless her soul, a 40 years and a gold watch civil servant, and she had always said, never sell your soul, your body, or your country, and he's laughing. He knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, and of course don't sign anything. Oh my goodness. But I signed. I joined. In the BSU, we had a number of projects, and I was always active in something. We had a program where we ran. We sent people into the high schools to recruit, and I was part of that. I can't remember. I had a hand in everything. I was, whatever needed to be done, I'll do it. Yeah, okay, here we go. And we all did all kinds of different things. So for a long time, we meshed the two, the Panther and the community. And remember, the BSU was very instrumental in the Black Panther Party. The BSU was considered the Black Panther Party on campus. My husband at that time, Clarence Thomas, was the campus coordinator for the Black Panther Party. And so there was a great interchange, even to the point of it's on the green books. FBI knows it, and I'm sure San Francisco State knows it. The BSU used our student body funds to buy guns for the Black Panther Party. It was meshed. It was like that, So we were back and forth, and at that time, it was very easy to keep your registration at state for semester after semester, even if you didn't come back and register. So we really didn't drop out. We maybe didn't come a semester or took courses in the experimental college, so that we could just keep our standing. Yeah, because most of us eventually returned to campus and got our degrees. What makes all of these organizations function are all the behind-the-scenes workers, okay? And I learned that through my mother being the secretary of the church. And my mother was a printer typographer by trade, so she ran off the bulletins for the church. And she typed them up, got all the information, people would come, and she typed them up. And then our job as her children, as teenagers, before we could hit the streets on Saturday night, we had to fold those bulletins. She had a Mimeo machine in the house, and she had one at the church. And and we had to fold those bulletins because people from the different CME churches to which she belonged, first just her own, and then others would come, and they would come to get their bulletins from Miss Hart. My name was Judy Hart at that time. Miss Hart, how you doing, Miss Hart? Oh, thank you so much for these bulletins, And we'd make sure we got them done so we could hit the streets and go to parties on Saturday night. So I understood as a young person that, those sisters in the church and those brothers on the usher board, they made the church. It wasn't just the preacher, the harumph, okay? So when I got in the movement, I understood the same principle. It's the same exact principle. It takes manpower, woman power to make this machine work, So I was, and ever since then, I'm now a very active member of the Soka Gakkai International, and I've been a member of this Buddhist organization for over 40 years, and I understand the very same principle, and I do the same thing. I'm a behind-the-scenes worker. Why am I behind-the-scenes worker? Because that's how objectives get met. Without somebody calling, you gave me how many emails to get here today. Without that, things don't work. When I saw it happening in the around 2016 or whenever it was, I asked one of them, we were on a panel together, and I said, where's your 10-point program? What are you studying? Where are you meeting? I said, I can't understand all this, everything going on in front of the TV cameras. That's not a movement. That's showtime. See? So, I always understood that and appreciated it so much. And I always try to sing the unsung.
It kind of reminds me when you were talking about political education, that when you all were involved in the movements, it wasn't just, being on the front line. You all also had to take PE courses.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you talked about this idea of Black Lives Matters, it's kind of like, where are the PE courses along with the movement?
Yeah. During the day, you sat at home and read Frantz Fanon. And, the Red Book, which is, of course, very easy to go through, but you read Carter G. Woodson. You read all of this history and politics so that you could understand the speakers when you went out at night and heard them. It wasn't just idle worship. It was like, yeah, all right, preach, because you knew that you knew what the person was talking about, And I always had PE classes. Just like Mark knows, I've always had SGI meetings at my house, always had political education classes in my apartment or wherever I was, just to get people to talk, because people have to have what somebody said earlier today, someplace else, open-ended dialogue. People need open-ended dialogue. We were inside. We were embedded in the movement. It wasn't glory days. We saw, that's like somebody taking a dump in the next room.
Yeah.
It's not, it wasn't glamorous. I wasn't in awe, and I tried to indicate that in the part that I noted about Leroy Jones, meeting Leroy Jones for the first time, which is in the book Virgin Soul, and it's been published as a short story several places. And he was a very nice, very mild person, very gentle, didn't do all that hitting on 100 women kind of stuff. I liked that about him. But when he got on that platform, up against the wall, motherfuckers. You know, that was what he came with. But he was very different and very mild off. So I think that was very educational for us, that we got to see the two sides of people. But we saw the inner workings. Once you see the inner workings, you don't have a feeling of awe. You realize that people are very human, and that they go through tragedy, you know. And I believe, you know, something from another mentor of mine. I don't know if it's a mentor of yours, but Daisaku Ikeda said,
He's the one who
don't envy another person's fortune, because you have to envy their misfortune. You know, so yeah. And I knew Sonia before, and met her, you know, help babysit her children before her first book came out. So that was another leadership role I had, and that was strictly due to Jimmy Garrett. And we don't call him Dr. James Garrett. We all call him Jimmy Garrett. That's how we knew him. And Jimmy Garrett came up to me one day. This is in around November maybe October '67, and he had a sheaf of papers with him, and he said, "Here's some poems by this dynamite poet from L.A., and I want you to get up and read them tomorrow at the," you know, this is the way brothers talk then, you know, "read them tomorrow at the you know, you know." And so I went home with those poems. You know, I don't know why he picked me. I mean, now I know why he picked me, because mouthy, you know, and I am an orator and a public speaker. But, you know, at the time, you know, I only basically read and recited in church, you know. And he gave me these poems, and I went home. And when I came out of them, that was really the birth of me as a poet, because I read them, I sang them, you know, I recited them in part, and everybody was just like, you know, because here was this, you know, this little person kind of blown up to a certain degree. So that was a leadership role, you know, that I assumed culturally, you know. So, you know, it happened like that. So I was reading her work for weeks and weeks. And then at the Black House one night, then, you know, they had me up to read her work, and she was there, and she interrupted me in the middle of it, and she said, "No, I have to read my own work. I have to read this." And she got up, and that was the end of Judy Hart reading Sonia Sanchez's poetry, and it was a wonderful end. I mean, I didn't know it then. I kind of was shocked, but then I had to come up with my own work, and I started writing my own poetry, you know. So it was wonderful, you know. But so we got to know these stellar people in a totally different way. Stokely Carmichael, H. Rap Brown, Cleve Sellers, you know, the people from SNCC who came north to recruit and to talk and to generate funds. We got to know them, but in a different way, in a very personal way.
So can you talk a little bit more about your development as an artist and writer? And you already spoke about, but if there was anything else about the particular time period that inspired you to take this particular route?
Well, yes, I was an activist during my 20s, and then we moved, Buzz and I moved back to the East Coast. But one of the first things that happened before I moved, I became the youngest faculty member of the new Black Studies department here. Okay, and I was hired to teach Black psychology and Black journalism. You know, and actually Vern Smith. Do you know the name Vernon Smith?
Yes, I've heard it.
Okay,
I don't know.
yeah, he wrote the book on Hank Aaron's.
Recently, the one that came out about 10 years ago? 12 years
No,
ago?
the one that came
Before.
about his home run victory.
Oh, back in the
Yes.
70s.
Yeah. So Vernon Smith was a student here, same time I was, and he was actually supposed to be the Black journalism instructor. But Vernon Smith got into a program that I later got into called the Summer Program for Minority Journalists. I think at the time that Vernon was in it, it was the Fred Friendly broadcast program, something. Anyway, he got the opportunity to go into professional journalism and took that opportunity. And so there was this opening, and I got that job. Is, incredible. But I'll tell you, when I went and stood in front of that class the first time, I had graduated, I had a baby, my baby was like 8 weeks old or something. And I stood in front of that class, and it hit me right away. I don't know a damn thing. I don't know anything.
You had your bachelor's degree, correct?
Yeah. And I had it like that. Yeah. Because, we were hustling. We were students. We were students in power at this college. We were in power. We ran things. The black students ran things for a while. When I came back and got my MFA in the 90s, I quickly sized it up and I said, oh, okay. This is the lesbian mafia now. It was the black students mafia when I was here. This is the lesbian mafia, at this point. And now it's a whole different, maybe it's I don't know, Asian, or what's the people of color and the Asian Pacific Islanders, what's that coalition? BIPOC?
BIPOC.
Maybe that's the mafia now. I don't know, But, hey, I'm just talking realistically, babies.
We have to talk about what we think is the mafia now. I'm curious what you want to say.
I'm 76. I can say what I fucking feel like.
That's
saying.
right.
Okay? Because what you gonna do? Shoot me?
Right.
I've already been shot. Okay? So let's continue on. Okay? But I still got that position and then stood there and realized the truth. I didn't read enough. So it became my life mission right then and there. I am going to read. I'm going to find out what makes this world tick. Not only racially, but philosophically, creatively. I'm going to understand all these ideas that I didn't. That's why in Virgin Soul, I made a big deal of Allwood being this reader who read 300 books a year, and being this great mind, and her appreciating it, but not doing the same herself. So that was really the first step. That was the prequel to becoming an effective creative writer, is that I spent probably a good 10 years reading. So I don't know if you have Amoibi Amoda on your, he taught in the first Black Studies department with me here, and he got his PhD from Berkeley in political science, and then he moved to the East Coast and became chair of the department at either CUNY, City University of New York. Yes.
Tell me his name again, please.
Moibi Amoda. He's probably retired. I'm sure he's retired now.
Moibi?
Moyibi, and Amoda. So we moved into his house in East Orange when Buzz and I and our baby moved back to New Jersey, and he had an incredible library, and so I spent, I put I finished my housework, because I was a stay-at-home mom for a while there, finished my housework and just dive into those books and read everything. And so I began to really educate myself. Okay. So it wasn't until I was, like I said, in 1980, that I had the courage to go to poetry workshops. New York, I don't know, any of y'all New York people, but okay. So New York is not a joke. New York writers, the New York black writers scene, it was not a joke. I was, again, I assumed my nobody role, and I went and I just looked. I didn't have enough courage to bring my work before them for a while. But when I finally got it up after I began chanting, then I did get involved consistently in writing groups. So that began my development. So I had some knowledge, some understanding, some wisdom to write.